Breaking news throughout the course of this morning, Steve Smith and David Warner, the former captain and vice captain of the Australian cricket team, have been banned for 1 year. Cricket Australia has also banned Cameron Bancroft, who actually did the ball tampering that has rocked the team in the recent days, for 9 months. They are all scheduled to leave South Africa today and have been replaced ahead of the fourth and final test in Johannesburg. Tim Paine has been handed the captaincy. Smith is expected to speak publicly for the very first time since admitting the plan to tamper with the ball during the third test. He'll be speaking about that when he arrives home in Sydney. For more reaction, we are now joined in our studio by SABC News Sports Editor Janet Whitton. Very good morning to you, Janet. Thank you very much for joining us. Do you think the ban for the 1 year and the 9 months was sufficient? Was it enough?
Yes, I think it was. According to the rules of the ICC, which is the world governing body for cricket, it's actually not a terribly serious offence. I think the reason that this story has become as big as it has is because of the fact that it was planned ahead of time, which I think is fairly unusual, and because the plan involved the senior leadership of the team. There's been speculation over the last couple of days over who exactly that leadership is. They have fingered both Steve Smith and David Warner for that, and subsequently Cricket Australia have taken it upon themselves to take that kind of action. And I think this was probably the kind of action that more or less what was expected. Cameron Bancroft has been regarded on a certain level as a victim in this, because it was the senior members of the team. He's the youngest member of the team. They asked him to do something. It's that kind of power relationship that they took advantage of, which is why his suspension is for slightly less time. I think it probably is fair, because the whole incident itself has shaken up cricket a lot.
Yeah. Well, that being said, it seems to have put a dark cloud over the Australian cricket team. Also, our play against South Africa. When you're playing against Australia, we're playing against the heavyweights, the heavy boys. What does this now mean, in terms of their credibility going forward?
This has been a really ugly tour on a certain level, because even before this incident there was all of the biting that was going on between the two teams, and the incidents that involved Kagiso Rabada. David Warner has been centrally involved in all of that, and he is actually the interesting case here, because he's the vice captain of the team and he didn't front up at the beginning of this, but there's been speculation all along that he was actually the person who formulated the plan, if you like. And certainly the Australian media have that impression that David Warner is the bad guy in all of this, that Steve Smith just wasn't a strong enough personality to tell him to back off and to stop it from happening. But also the other part of this, where the credibility of the Australian team and Cricket Australia does come into question, is the fact that Cricket Australia have let off coach Darren Lehmann completely. They say he wasn't involved. And there's a twofold problem with that. First of all, if you listen to the Australian media, certainly at last night's press conference, none of them believe he wasn't involved. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he wasn't. As the coach of the team, he should have known what was going on. And on top of that, it's been since he was there that this culture of win at all costs, and if it means pushing the line, has been engendered in that Australian team. And that's a problem. And I think this is a wake-up call, not just to Australia, but to world cricket in general. But that, you know what, guys, you've been pushing the envelope for too long now. It's time to back off and get back to playing cricket the way it was supposed to be played.
In terms of having a look at the response, immediately a response not only from Cricket South Africa but also the Prime Minister saying that as soon as the boys come back home they will be brought to book. Let's have a look at how Australia as a country has actually been dealing with this.
Very badly. They've taken it very to heart. It's almost as if they're really hurt by that. And I think that in order to understand the depth and the strength of that reaction, you've got to understand what cricket means in Australia. There's a common saying in Australia that the captain of the Australian cricket team is second in importance in the country only to the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, in this situation. That's how important cricket is in Australia. It is the widest followed sport in the country, and they are the highest paid sportsmen in that country. So they're kind of put on this pedestal, and I think that the fact that they've been pushed right off that pedestal has really kind of got to Australians. They suddenly realize, is this the kind of people that we really are? I think they've reacted to it because it's so much more than just a sports incident. It talks to what kind of people the Australians are, and they've been hurt by what their their cricket leaders have done.
And just rounding this up, with regards to the ICC, you levelled the ban being appropriate towards the ICC legislation or rules and regulations. Can you just give us a brief summary around that?
I think the ICC are going to have to take a long, hard look at themselves, and that might be the good that comes out of this rather sorry story. The ICC level charges only against Cameron Bancroft and Steve Smith. They were the two that went up front on Saturday evening and said and admitted what they've done. Steve Smith was banned for the fourth test, which starts at the Wanderers on Friday anyway, because that's the rules. That's what the rules state should have happened. Bancroft was charged with a level two offence, which gave him 3 demerit points, which doesn't ban him for a test match. So if Australia hadn't withdrawn him from the team, he could have played this weekend.
Okay.
So the ICC rules, as far as this is concerned, are quite lenient. They've followed them to the letter, and I think what they're going to have to look at is, are those rules actually strong enough? And sometimes they need to be able to look outside the letter of the law and say, okay, this is a bigger picture than just this. The ICC has to look not just at the laws of cricket, but the way in which they are enforced. And I think that's going to be something that Dave Richardson's going to have to get the organisation to do in the coming months.
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us here, SABC News Sports Editor Janet Whitton, giving us the details around the banning there of the captain as well as vice captain of the Australian cricket team. Let's have a look at some